Hey everybody, in the past I've tried making cold porcelain and it didn't work, so I'm going to try another recipe. And you start with a cup of cornstarch and a cup of PVA glue. Whoop. I'm also going to add a tablespoon of mineral oil and a tablespoon of vinegar. Oop, a little more than a tablespoon. And then I want to try to go ahead and stir this a little before we turn the heat on. And most crafters would already know this, but just as a disclaimer, I suppose, I use, this is a cheap non-stick pot that is only used for crafts, not for food. And the same with this little wood utensil. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn on low heat. Okay, you can see it's changing. It's getting hard to really stir, but you want to keep it moving. And meanwhile, before I even started this, I do have a area that we're going to be working with this, and I have smoothed over some mineral oil to coat it so that it doesn't stick. Now this is starting to look exactly like it should. It almost gets that mashed potato consistency, and before long it's going to start getting so thick that the stuff on the bottom's going to start kind of like that right there. You can see it kind of peeling. So we should be getting very close. Okay, it's leaving those little sticky marks on the bottom. I think we're ready to turn this out. Okay, I put it back on the heat, and you can see it picked up everything that was on the bottom there. It's still really warm from being back on the heat. So we're going to give that just a minute to cool off where it's just a little bit easier to handle. Okay, so I want to keep my hands covered in the Nivea while we knead. It should get smoother and smoother as we knead. Still soft. I'm going to put this back in the bag so it doesn't dry out. Much better. Okay, so we are back, and I've got some examples here of me just playing around with the porcelain. Now, one thing I wanted to say was, when you don't color it, you're going to get this, it's kind of translucent, but I did this little rosebud that I wanted to show you. It's a more than a bud, it's kind of opening up there. Hopefully the camera's going to let you see that. And then here's a piece that I put some green paint in, and then I flattened it out and just made a little flutter with it. And these two I had rolled on a pencil and just made this little curly Q. And then it's just the plain, but this one I had put some paint on it, and then I dipped it in glitter, because what I was thinking these would be cute for would be gift bags, if you wanted to tie one or two on a gift bag, since bows aren't really the greatest thing for gift bags, but also Christmas ornaments. If you had these maybe 2 or 3, yeah, maybe just twice as long, put 2 of these together and made some little curly Qs to hang on the tree with glitter. Thought that would be really cute. So, and then I was just trying to think outside the box. So this one, I rolled out a flat piece, semi-flat, and then I put it around this cup and I let it dry. But anything round would have worked. I just happened to have that. I was thinking about making like napkin rings, and I put a heart on it just because, you know, it's coming up on Valentine's Day. So, but you could literally, if you wanted to make them Christmassy, you know, you could use a little cookie cutter. If you're not comfortable just shaping something on your own, or you could just make it like these little curly Qs, but while they're wet, you know, you would want to make a circle out of it, something like that. But this one also kind of shows how it's a little translucent instead of like a solid white. Kind of like glue, when it dries, it gets that translucent look to it. So just wanted to kind of show you what I'd been playing around with. And now we're going to make one of these little roses, because it's amazing how easy they are. And after this set overnight, it really did start to settle and become easier to work with. So I'm just going to take out a little piece. This is the same that we had made in the previous video. I'm just going to open up my Nivea because it's been sitting, so I may have to get my hands greased up a little bit. My mom had actually done this when I was little, and she had made like 3 of these little, she had made 3 of these little roses, and she had made like a little saucer that had a little point in the middle where you could drop your rings on it. And then she had 3 little rosebuds as decoration. That she had 3 of these little rosebuds that she had used as decoration. So that's what I had in mind when I started making that. But you can make them large. They don't have to be small. The neat thing about this is just how thin it rolls out, which you should be able to see those petals. Very, very thin. And then, of course, with this, you want to do the trick where you pull it apart and make sure you get really tall little peaks there and everything still looks smooth. So let's just take off a tiny little bit, just this much, and I'm going to kind of roll it into a ball to start, but then I want to make a little point there on the end, like that, like a little teardrop kind of. Alright, so I just found this wood piece so that it would be something you could, you know, have a contrast so you could actually see what I'm doing. This tablecloth was so pale I didn't think it would work. So now you're going to take, if we do, you know, small, you're going to take just a little piece of clay, not big at all. And you're just going to want to mash it. Oop, I'm still sticky, so I'm going to use some more of the Nivium. Get that work back in. And you want to make sure that you press those edges out. This is really a little bit too big, but you'll be able to get the idea of what I'm doing. You can see just how thin that is. You know, your other doughs, like the salt dough, you would not be able to do something like this. Now what you're going to want to do is lay it right against that and just wrap it. But we leave this petal so that it's kind of far away there, so you can see the beginning of the middle of the rose where the petals are opening. Don't worry about this getting bulky. You can always pinch it off smaller if you need to. We're going to make another. And again, pinch them really, really flat. The thinner you make the edge of the petal, the cuter it is. Oops. Again, you can see how thin, how thin that is. And we're going to pick this up and just go right in. Maybe not completely opposite, but coming in from the side so that it overlaps the other petal. And then we'll make another petal. Oh, one other thing I was going to show you. Let me get this wrapped. And I'm going to pinch off part of that. Take a Q-tip or a skewer and put this right in it. That way, instead of it laying down and flattening your petals, you can just set it aside. Like I've got it in this piece of styrofoam that came in a package from Amazon. And then just make another petal, and you would continue to do this. If you have pigment powder, you can use pigment powder on these, or like I said, you can just work paint into the clay, and you get a really good coloring that way too. You can tell by this little green flutter. Okay, so we're just going to come up and choose where we want the next petal and wrap it, and just kind of work with your petals as far as how open you want them to look, or if you still want them tight, like a really tight bud. Now this one I'm going to leave a little taller and kind of curl it back. And for the sake of time, we'll stop at this size, but I just wanted you to see how you do it. And you would just continue to wrap it and make that as large as you want. So I think he's cute. I'm just going to lay him over here. I'm not going to worry about putting him on my skewer. If you have a dowel rod, or if you have a pencil, I mean, it worked. But if you had a dowel rod or a skewer, maybe a chopstick, something like that, you can roll this into a little rope and wrap it. And I'll just kind of show you. If you have clay tools, you may also have, there's a small little rolling pin that's just a solid bar. And that works real well with this as well. I'm sure it would. I don't use it, but yeah, so you would just rotate this around like so. And then lay it on something like this, you know, where it can dry this way. If you try to stand it up, that clay is just going to slide down the skewer. But this worked really well. So that's how these little curlicues were made. With this one, I was thinking of, you know how some flowers just look like a little flutter, almost like a morning glory, or a, what is that other flower? I'm totally blank. But anyway, you know the flowers I mean, where they don't look like they have individual petals. It just looks like a little one petal surrounding the stamen that comes up, and then it just flutters out. So that's what I was thinking of when I was playing around with that. And all I had done, but when I laid it down, I thought it was dry and it wasn't. So when I laid it down, it kind of closed my flutter. But what I had done was very simple. I just flattened out a piece. And I tried to make sure the edges were as flat as I could get them, because they automatically almost flutter on their own, you know, whenever they're flattened like that. But I had just, that's too much. I had just pinched it in the middle. You'll be able to tell whenever you flatten it out if you've got it thin enough, or like it, the middle doesn't really matter so much. It's those edges that are going to look really, really delicate. like I'm leaving a little lump there in the middle, and I'm just kind of fluttering the edges by making them flat. And then you can just use like a pencil or anything and get it to cup at the bottom. And let's see, the heart, honestly, I was just rolled it into a ball, and I'd kind of flattened it. I think I used this actually. And then I just started slowly sculpting a point at the heart, and I used the this end, the pointed end, and I started mashing the heart in at the top, and just continued to play with it with my fingers till I got it where I wanted it. So, you know, something that simple, but a cookie cutter, depending on what you're making, if that's not too big, you know, you could, for example, do a heart or a star, something like that, and then use this, oh, I should have left it, but, and then use this at the top, poke a hole in it, so that you can put it on a keychain or something like that. So, I mean, you can really just let your imagination go wild with what all you can do with this. Flowers are always fun. Make little bouquets of flowers. Or, you know, this could have just as easily been a big rose that I had made and put on there. Something more generic. Or if your bathroom, or not bathroom, if your kitchen is decorated in a specific thing, like sunflowers, maybe you would want to try to create sunflowers, and then make a band and put a sunflower on it for your napkin rings, or anything else you want to use it for in the kitchen, you know. So anyway, guys, this stuff was kind of fun to work with. I think closer to Christmas we'll be using it to make Christmas ornaments. But it's just something to spark your interest and get you to thinking outside the box with it as well. And then, you know, around August or September maybe, we'll do another video using this and come up with some creative Christmas ornaments. Meanwhile, you guys have a great week. See you later.